Good evening, one and all. This is week 9 of Slogging It. We are creeping closer and closer to Toby Tarrant's February call of when we were going to make it to. So, today's the 19th of January, my birthday. Thanks for mentioning
Woohoo!
that, lads.
Happy
Presents,
birthday
To
to
you.
presents and gift cards. Welcome to info@sloggingit.co.uk. Make sure that you address them for me rather than Huge, otherwise he'll start buying himself all sorts of techie nonsense and I won't see a penny of it. Yes, so I digress, obviously, as I tend to do most weeks. We have got a lot to get through this week. We had an amazing interview that we recorded last night, which you'll be hearing later, which is Sky Sports and now freelance broadcaster Matt Floyd. We had an amazing conversation with him.
self-proclaimed behemoth of broadcasting.
Yeah.
Fantastic description.
Yeah, we were discussing earlier, weren't we, what we're going to call Sir Michael Parkinson, after Floyd called himself a behemoth. The god of all things, Sir Michael Parkinson, just to do just the justification. Obviously you've heard from the two lads already, but we should ask them how they're doing this week. I'm going to come to Simon first this week.
I am good, mate. I am good, yes. The eye, for all those that were really worried about the implications of things with the dog last week, the eye is healed. I did have a minor headbutting incident that split the lip, however. But just so you're all aware, it's not the wife. But it's things are good though, mate. Quarantine, lockdown, or not quarantine, but self-isolation.
Yeah.
Day 5, I think now, is going well. Dull.
Yeah.
Dull.
But you're alive and well, which is great. So, and as I said, we've got a lot to get through, so shut up. Eugene, how are you getting on?
I have had nowhere near the same amount of coffee as Simon today, as you can see. I think I liked your expression a little bit earlier, and that somebody has not put 20p in him, they put £2 because he is absolutely bouncy. But yeah, I'm good, thanks, Jono.
For a treat.
Trying to stop him on a normal week's hard enough, but yeah, tonight I feel like we've got some management to do. Eugene, as I say, lots to look forward to with the Matt Floyd interview later on, but we want to quickly run over this week in cricket. Australia, India. Fair fucking play, India. I think that's amazing. Like I stayed up to watch it. All the Aussies at the start of the day. Mark Waugh, Shane Warne, Hussey, Gilchrist. We can't see him doing this. Pujara is unbelievable. The mental strength. I mean, he got battered for a period. He got hit something like 11 or 12 times. Some of them pretty nasty. And he just got himself back in and then off he went. Yeah, he got done LBW with the second new ball by Cummins. We won that jag back. But 45 he was off 200 balls at one point. And it's like, do you know what, mate? Fair play to you. Just did everything that his country needed him to do. And then for Pant to play another astounding innings and not only draw to retain it, but to actually win. And finally, someone beat the Aussies at the Gabba, which will have him shut up now because we've not lost here for 30 years. Fuck off. We do like Australians for any Australians listening, but yeah, it's just nice that that's finally a record that's been broken. What are your views, lads?
It was amazing and fair play to them. When you look at the list of players they had out who either were out before the series, so there was a thing before this when they came over. There was a best Indian seam attack of all time a couple of years ago. They had none of those bowlers fit for the last game. So no Bumrah, no Yadav, no Shami, no what's Sharma. The all-rounder called? No Sharma. You got the all-rounder that fills a massive role for them. He wasn't there.
Yeah.
But I think, and
Pandya.
then to lose Pandya, Hardik Pandya, and then to lose Jadeja, Ashwin, no Chahal, who made England look like a right bunch of numpties last time he played here.
Yeah. Kohli. No Kohli.
No Kohli. Your best batter goes home after getting bowled out for 36. And then all of a sudden they produce that performance.
With a B team. It's their second 11 pretty much, other than Sharma and Gill. And, Huge, I don't know what you think. But phenomenal result from an Indian perspective.
Absolutely. I mean, you think about Sriraj in his third test, I think it is, leading that seam attack, taking poles for fun. I think he took another fifer in the second innings.
Yeah.
Just what a player. I mean, I will say one thing. It was exciting cricket. Who said 5 days in Test cricket needs to reduce to four? You wind your neck in now. It was absolutely phenomenal to see, and something that I don't know if this is the right way to sort of depict it, but I think that has the IPL written all over it. Those guys that will all play now, all featured in the IPL in the past 2 years. And I suppose that just shows you that the IPL is just breeding talent in India. It's giving them a platform to show their talents, and you can see that coming through. I mean, just what an absolutely unbelievable test match.
I think what it's doing is giving them experience in pressure situations, isn't it? But all the
Yeah.
people that play, when you hear people come through over here, you play county cricket in front of 3 men and a dog, and then you go into a test arena where you've got constant media attention, you've got 25, 30,000 people stood around you all the time, and you've got the best players in the world. So, but them, they've got the best players in the world in front of 100,000 people.
It's where they cut the teeth, isn't it, in professional cricket, which is amazing. I think the interesting you mentioned there, Huge, about people who say Test cricket's dead, wind your neck in. They finished. India won, I think, with 3 overs left in the day's play.
Exactly. Yeah.
The other, we have to mention England and Sri Lanka. Also, a brilliant Test match. England, did their best to make it a lot closer than it should have been, in my view, but incredibly exciting going into that, fifth day, only needing 36 or whatever it was, but 3 down. Those of us who watch a lot of cricket and know a fair bit about cricket, we're going, hold on, if they get another couple early, we might be in a bit of trouble here. And so it was incredibly exciting Test cricket. Although, one lasted 5 overs on the 5th morning and the other one went right to the end. Great advert this week for Test cricket.
Absolutely. It was exciting enough for me to actually wake up at 4 a.m. to watch those 5 overs. Yeah. I wanted to see what was going to happen. And I suppose that just shows you that, Test cricket is definitely alive and well and kicking. And specifically the 5th day, albeit, 85 overs in the Aussie and Indian one and 5 overs. So 90 overs in total. So there we go.
No, I think it's great. It's great. Congratulations to England. Congratulations to India. Great results. I think England will take be very happy. Predominantly or historically slow starters on away tours to be 1-0 up after 1. I do think Sri Lanka almost kind of gave it to them in the first innings. Yeah. But be interesting to see what happens come Friday when the second test starts. But yeah, really, really exciting to watch some Test cricket that's actually had a bit of bite to it. And
there was some one-day cricket on. I don't know if you guys saw the one-day game between the UAE and Ireland.
I can see it. Sorry, Mark.
So Mark didn't play in it, but
no, I saw that. Yeah, I realised. That's why I didn't watch it, obviously, because
exactly. But yeah, it was a great game of cricket too. I mean, looking at it, Ireland posted 228 for 6, and then got revenge on the UAE, bowling them out for 116. So. It's good to see the Associate Nations also alive and kicking well during this pandemic. And then tomorrow, which is Wednesday, I think we have the West Indies playing against Bangladesh.
We do. That's the first game tomorrow, I believe.
Absolutely.
Just on the Ireland thing, Simi Singh, their spinner, I think had 5 for 7 at one point.
Yeah, really.
I mean, brilliant turnaround. Great result for him personally.
I actually did see that. He's the 21st person in one-day cricket to take a fifer and score 50.
Oh, did he get 50 as well, did he?
He got a 52. Yeah, I actually saw that stat. So yeah, that was an interesting.
He got 52 or he got a 52?
He actually got 54, just so you're aware.
So he got a 50. Someone else put, maybe someone shoved a fiver in him. He's coming up with stats and all sorts tonight. Is Robbo? He must be.
Cricinfo is a wonderful website.
So Becky's been putting spoonfuls of sugar in his coffee, I think, today. I've never known him like this.
Never drank so much caramel syrup.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, okay. Before we move on, as I say, we're having to kind of scoot through the front end tonight a little bit because it's quite, a brilliant interview with Floyd, and then there's a few bits we want to cover off after that. So we must thank our partners. So obviously Woodstock Cricket, Big Smoke Brewery, But not most importantly, but most importantly, everything that we do with the golf day, with the cricket days that we're going to do, and obviously with this is our association with the Lord's Taverners. So, as always, I will read you the text number just in case you've forgotten it in the 7 days, and you definitely can afford another £3 this week, all of you wonderful listeners. 70331, and you text TABS11. That is for £3 donation. Please make sure you are 16 or over and have the bill payer's permission before doing so. We very much look forward to talking to you a little bit more later on, but for now, after a note from our good friends at the Lord's Taverners, you will hear an amazing interview that we completed last night with Matt Floyd. Enjoy.
The Lord's Taverners is the UK's leading youth cricket and disability sports charity. We break down barriers and empower disadvantaged and disabled young people to fulfil their potential and build life skills. Our cricket programmes support some of the most marginalised and at-risk young people in the UK, using sport and recreation to build links and encouraging groups to play sport together. We tackle issues such as knife crime, unemployment, radicalisation and also isolation, something we are all feeling right now. Last year, our programmes impacted the lives of more than 12,000 young people, and with your support will help even more in the future. Find out more and make a donation at lordstaverners.org and help us to continue our life-changing work. Thank you.
So thank you very much to our partners, the Lord's Taverners, and on that bombshell, we welcome this week's host, the broadcasting mammoth, cricketing legend, Oxford graduate, that is Matthew Floyd. How are you, Floydie? Great to have you with us, mate.
That's the best intro I've ever received. It's like an audio clip and stick it on my website or something.
Without fail, yeah, absolutely.
I love that. I'm good, thanks. I'm good, thanks.
Good. When we talk about intros and websites, when you said about your website, then it only takes me back to Max Rushton, when he was talking about his website and all of the... he just put loads of like really stupid merchandise on his website, none of which he ever had. And it's like Max Rushton balloons and like coffee cups and stuff like that. So at least you actually have a properly functioning website, I'm sure.
That is very Max Rushton, and I actually know him pretty well. Do you know why? Because I went to the same college as him.
Oh, wow.
All right.
Random.
What a small world, yeah.
Yeah, small world. And then we both ended up working at Sky.
Yeah.
He was doing soccer AM and I was doing cricket AM at the same time. So we had AMs covered.
Yeah. No, Max is a gent. Very kindly helped us kind of cut our teeth in this, didn't he, fellas?
He
did.
And
Toby doing the first couple of episodes with us, so hopefully we're a bit more professional and a bit more prepared now. But TBC, as Mark Adair will confirm.
Yeah.
So obviously, Matt, thanks for coming on. Obviously, it's a cricket and mental health podcast. We've talked to you a little bit off air about what we want to cover off, but firstly, I mean, we spoke about this earlier on. I'm going to go straight in at the deep end here. So, born in London. Indian mother, English father. Cricket must have been a huge part of your childhood just through that growing up straight away, right?
Yeah, it was. Ironically, actually, more through my dad than my mum. She's probably the only Indian in London who doesn't like cricket. But she came over here when she was 13 years old. Actually, her family were the first family to drive all the way from India to the UK. There was a newspaper story in the Times in the 50s. Obviously took them months. Came over here. Her parents basically left her here with foster parents from a young age. And then she stayed and eventually, married my dad. So she's quite anglicised, having been here for long. And my dad is originally from the West Country. We then moved to London. He's the one who was the cricket nut. So he took me to my local club, Hampstead Cricket Club, which I'm still a member of over 30 years later, playing the same league as Eugene. He plays for Twickenham. Played against him actually this summer. I'm sure we'll We'll talk about that game, I'm sure.
How did you guess? How did you guess?
I might have got a few. But my balance wasn't so in that game for some reason. Slippery surface. And yeah, my dad took me down to Hampstead when I was 9, just never looked back since. Really, cricket's been my life, recreationally, and then went into obviously TV and working on cricket, which I didn't think I'd ever do, but it's pretty much been there since I was 9 years old. It's been a big part of my life.
Amazing. I mean, that took me by surprise then when you said about your mum and your parents leaving her with a foster family. I mean, that's your mum will have had to grow up very, very quickly in that scenario, and I suppose she's passed a lot of those life lessons on to you from being a really young age as well, no doubt.
Yeah, definitely. She's a really tough woman, and I have a lot of respect for her. Both my parents have been great. I've been very lucky, really. I've had, great parents, great upbringing. Not everyone has that, so I'm very grateful. I think you do grow up if you're left in that environment. She had to deal with quite a lot of racism when she was at school. She went to Clapham Grammar School, I think it was, and I remember looking at this this photo in the house when I was growing up, and it was incredible. Really, it was just one of those long, thin school photos.
Yeah.
And it was just all these white faces, and then this little brown dot on the end was the only non-white face. Was that
wow.
My mum's, probably about 500 kids there.
Yeah.
There on the end. But yeah, I think it did toughen her up. Getting away from her parents.
We spoke earlier this afternoon about we're both mixed race and both grew up in the 80s, and I'm really interested. I know that you felt it's been a benefit when we talked earlier about we play cricket against a lot of Asian sides and we play cricket with, in and around white sides, and you feel like you've been able to kind of have almost a foot in both camps and see things from both different point of views. But before we go into that slightly, like growing up in the 80s, did you feel like through a lack of education almost from some people, you were ever targeted? I mean, you can say no. It varies for different people. But do you think there was a lack of education around some people as to kind of mixed race marriages and what have you at that point in time?
Do you know what? I didn't experience too much of that. I won't lie. I mean, I was quite lucky. The environment I grew up in, there wasn't a whole load of that really. I'm also, I've got a very English name. I've got an Indian middle name here, but yeah. Floyd's a very English name. I don't look necessarily like I'm half Indian.
Yeah.
And I'm culturally very English because I was born and brought up here. So,
yeah.
I've always felt very English, and, playing cricket growing up and at school, I was always one of the lads, I was very much in with all the other English guys, I was part of the crew, but at the same time, I had a bit of a foot in the other camp as well. And I had a lot of Asian mates and playing cricket as well. You know what it's like, Eugene, you in the Middlesex League, especially, you get a lot of Asian players. Every club has a lot of Asian players and a lot of white players. Yeah. And there is a bit of a divide, Some guys can bridge the gap, but there's a bit of a cultural divide and a bit of unconscious bias, I think, in there as well, which I've written about a little bit. I did a show, The Sky, a couple of years ago, more than that, actually, 2 or 3 years ago, about unconscious bias in cricket and how it's affected a lot of the numbers coming through. We don't have many Asian players coming through to county level at the moment. It's about 4%, I think. And about 35% of club cricketers are Asian. And a lot of the players are Asian as well. You get someone like Warwickshire, Yorkshire, loads of Asians in their 11s up to 17s, and then none of them really coming through to the professional ranks. So I've never really experienced too much of it myself, but I have seen it, and I've seen it from the other side. I've seen it from the, the sort of privileged white side, as it were. And I'm not talking necessarily just about racism. I'm talking about, unconscious bias, and that still definitely exists in society. It's pretty rife.
I couldn't agree more. To be honest, I think the unconscious bias is huge and still absolutely rife in society. I think you're right, where there's a lot of predominantly Asian areas, so the Bradford League or Yorkshire, Birmingham, certainly London. There's huge Asian populations. I think the something that's I'm really interested to see how it works is Phil de Freitas is now in charge of London schools cricket and has got a real big, one of the top things on his list of priorities is really helping kind of, BAME communities push into that system. So I think that one of the things he wants to do is talk about if you play for Surrey or Middlesex, you then cannot play for London schools. So that is then a breeding ground for those children to then push their way into first-class cricket, which I think is an amazing initiative. And if he can make that stick, then fair play to him, because that'll make a huge difference.
Yeah, definitely. I actually went through the London school system, actually, when I was younger. I played a few games. In those days, you could play for the Middlesex and London schools as well, but you kind of London schools was the sort of pathway, and then I ended up playing more for Middlesex. But I thought it was a great experience. You got to go and play against all these talented young county sides and go and play at beautiful grounds, and a lot of the kids there were not from privileged schools as well, which made a big difference. You go and play for Middlesex Colts, and there's a lot of private school kids. Not quite the same in London schools. It was a lot more meritocratic, would we say? I'm
not sure 2 out of the 3 of us know what that even means.
I don't know either. It just sounds really good. Doesn't it?
Sounds incredible. Yeah. So, like Johnny said, we'll come on to your adult cricket shortly, and you've already mentioned talking about going down to Hampstead, which I've lived in Hampstead. Not in the nice part. That makes me... Yeah, I played for the MCC Young Cricketers. And hang on, I'll just run through this for a start. I played for the MCC Young Cricketers, and we lived in a hostel in Hampstead.
High Elm.
Yes.
Yeah, I know High Elm.
It's a special place to live, but we'll have to leave that conversation for off air. So we've spoken about Hampstead. But what are your sort of main memories of junior cricket? Sort of like you say, you've talked about London schools and going through the system, but what was it like going through that for you?
I used to love it. Those were really happy days for me. It made me realise, though, that you can't do that without family support. There's a lot of time and money spent and commitment spent by parents driving their kids around, and if you don't get that, it's very hard to then progress through the ranks and carry on playing, beyond your teenage years, because you need to have that foundation. So I was lucky. My dad was a cricket nut, and he used to drive me around the country on Saturday and Sunday, and sometimes even midweek. Might take the odd day off school and play London schools or Middlesex under 13s or 15s or whoever. And I think it was a great experience for me because I really bonded with my dad over those years. Felt a bit bad because my mum probably felt a bit left out in some ways because I spent so much time with my dad. But then I'd always make that up with my mum, and when I was back home, and try and spend more time with her. But it was I was lucky. My dad wasn't pushy. He wasn't desperate for me to be a professional player or anything. He was very laid back. Still is very laid back. So he just wanted to take me around and watch me play, really, and he enjoyed it as much as I did. And he never, if I got a duck or something, he never. What are you doing? Why are you running down the track, third ball? He was very easygoing. And then as I got older, I started socialising more and, drinking more. And he'd drive me down there when I was hungover and stop and be sick out of the car or something like that. And then go down and not do very well, and then he'd drive me back. But yeah, and I really enjoyed that time. But it was a big time commitment.
Mm. Yeah, it is, isn't it? It's one of those. I think it's strange cricket growing up. We and John had a chat about it the other day, obviously with him knowing the owner of Woodstock, and like the sustainability of cricket is expensive. It is very expensive to sort of do and to take part in, and like I say, miles, especially if you get to a rep situation where you're representing Middlesex, or in my case, Knox or whatever, there's a lot of miles and a lot of time that parents have to put in.
Absolutely, and the equipment. I mean, John, what you were saying before, some bats retailing at £700 or something.
Yeah. It happens quite a lot now. I mean, there's bats. Funnily enough, the manufacturer who used to sell a bat for £1,000, I had a look on their website a couple of days ago just to see if it was still on, and they don't advertise it, or maybe you can just buy it, but you have to go down there. But when even £700 for a cricket bat,
£999 now.
Yeah, I mean the bespoke bats are about 700, 800 quid. Like, and I just think, like, you know,
we pay that.
Well, people do. I mean, this is the thing. You know, we're the four of us as a collective are of an age where we could, you know, the top end bat used to, you know, at 260 quid, be like, oh my god, that is like ridiculous money.
Yeah.
And now you charge it. People, as a general rule, are charging at least double, if not towards triple that. And I can't get my head around it. You know,
I think it was one of those things. As cricket developed and got more interesting, so I can remember I was on the YCs at 2005 Ashes, and we used to coach in the indoor nets, and you'd see between the start of 2005, the guys coming in, and everyone's got like their dad's cut iron bat or whatever. The kids that you coach in. By the end of 2005, you've got kids walking in with top spec whatever branded bats. And I'm picking the thing up the training session and going, this is better than my one, and I'm sponsored.
Yeah,
it's just the amount of money these guys were paying for kit and training and everything. It was astounding.
Well, the moral of the story is you need to know a cricket bat maker, don't you? So you can just get.
Hey.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. And if anybody knows one, please let us know.
A good one. I'm looking for a good one.
Don't worry, Floyd. You've been you're on the nice list, not the naughty list this year, mate. So don't you worry.
He's only going to charge you 650
before.
Yeah, exactly. I'll start saving now.
Yeah, absolutely. After school, you went to. I mean, look. I was looking at this earlier, and I knew most of it anyway, but in my mind, you completed Oxford, right? So not only do you go to one of the two arguably most famous universities in the world to read classics and get a 2-1, but you get a blue, you play first-class cricket, and you get 128 not out in the varsity match against Cambridge. I'm not your extracurricular stuff. We'll park there because I know Sarah's not too far away. But I think you've completed. I was worried where you were going there
when you said I completed Oxford. I was a bit concerned where you were going there. So has he been speaking to my old roommate?
But from a sports and kind of educational perspective, you've nailed it, right?
Yeah. Listen, I had a great time there. I really did. You know, people have different experiences at Oxford. When I got there, I didn't know what to expect, and I kind of found that I was maybe sort of in the middle, really. And you know, there were some of the poshest people I've ever met in my life from some of the, you know, poshest boarding schools around Eton and other places. And I found I was I went to a private day school in London. So you know, I actually had a scholarship to go to my school, and you know, we was a mixture of people there, really. But we were a bit worldly because we were from the city, and then you know, you go to university and you met all these boarding school people from the country, and they were incredibly intellectual, incredibly posh, and you know, not very worldly because they you know, get around with girls and that sort of thing. So, and you know, we didn't really fit in with them. And then you know, a lot of the state school kids at Oxford, you know, had a bit of a chip on their shoulder because they were, you know, there weren't enough of them really. They were a bit in the minority, and you know, there was a real sort of culture clash between them and the exceptionally posh aristocrats from you know, Sherborne or Wellington or wherever. So you know, I felt a bit like in the middle of that really. I was a bit of both. And but we were definitely guys from my type of school were we sort of hung out together, and we were in the middle. But I loved that because I then came out of Oxford with totally different group of friends, you know, that I would never have met in my school days or in London. And then, as you said, I concentrated on extracurricular stuff while I was there. Playing cricket was a big part of me going there. I won't lie. I applied to a college that I'd heard they wouldn't hold it against you if you were decent at sport.
Okay. Yeah.
So I got some good advice from my tutor, and managed to sneak in through the back door. And then luckily I did a course where I had a lot of free time in my summers. My exams were not in my summers, so I was able to play cricket. Got the blue in my second year, I think.
Wow.
Pants off everyone. I mean, it was 100, but it was very, very slow. In fact, some of the Cambridge players were calling me a corpse with pads.
Brilliant.
At the end of the innings.
It's a new sledge.
It's a new sledge. But, hey, we went on and won the game with a couple of overs to spare on day 4, so I'm not complaining.
And do you know what? How many people can say they've got an Oxford Blue and scored 128 not out in a varsity match? I mean, you will have faced far better chirps than that. You'll have faced far worse chirps than that. But I'll tell you what, mate, you'll take that to your grave and it'll make you proud every day that you do. So,
listen, I'm very happy with it. But trust me, when I was in the Sky commentary box, first class 100 against Cambridge University doesn't go down that way. It wasn't something that I was bragging about, I mean, Sir Ian Botham was having none of it. He was like, he kept on saying it was for Cambridge just because he thought he was annoying me. And I think once they pulled up my first class stats, which is terrible, by the way, they got Benedict, the stats man, to pull him up. And it had a list of all the guys who got me out. I only had about 8 innings or something. Got 100 against Cambridge, and then I don't think I scored higher than 28 or something against the county sides. It was pretty awful. And there was a list of players who got me out, and it was all guys you hadn't heard of. It was reading out this list to everyone else and taking them on. And there's not much I could say, really. You got an England captain there taking you crap. He's right.
Yes, I am compared to you. Yes,
you're talking to 3 lads who are 3 of the biggest badges you'll ever meet, and none of us have been anywhere near to a first class 100. So I mean, it's something that we view with absolute. What's the word I'm looking for? I think you're a god.
Astonishment.
That's the first thing that's coming to mind.
Admiration.
If you scored a first class 100, absolute admiration. I just think it's incredible.
I really like how
just get a game against Cambridge. They're rubbish.
On a flat one,
first class 100 in the book.
I really like the fact that the sledges that Cambridge could come out with in an Oxford v Cambridge varsity game for everyone that went to a normal school is standing there going, yes, someone getting called a corpse with pads is exactly what I thought it would be. I can remember we played against Oxford, UCCE as it was a few years ago, 2004.
What year?
2004.
So that was just after I left.
Yeah.
The year before, I might have played in that game.
So you'd have been on with Paul McMahon.
Yeah, I played.
Yeah, I played all my junior cricket with Paul. Absolute legend of a guy. I did about 4 degrees and then finally found a job at 31, working for the ICC.
Yeah, he's a lot for the ICC.
Yeah, he's a very, very clever lad. But we were doing our warm ups on Northant side, as you can imagine. The Northant side, slightly overweight. Not necessarily the most intelligent group of lads. And we're doing the stretches in the circle, talking about the things that fat, slightly overweight, average cricketers talk about in the stretches in the circle. And these 2 lads from Oxford UCCE, clearly Oxford Brooks lads, came walking out of the dressing room shaking their head. And I'm like, what's up with you two? He says, what are you lads talking about? And so I was like, he's talking about his sister and he's talking about whatever else and like the things. I was like, what are they talking about in there? And these 2 lads they're talking about how the different Oakley lenses change the refraction of light that affects depth perception and how that's going to affect high catches. We just looked at him and went, do you want to come and warm up with us? But yeah, different level of intelligence to compared to what we were playing in. Good cricket.
Well, I tell you what, it was interesting because I was there when they basically turned it into the academy, the UCCE, which meant that no longer would the first class games be just Oxford University. It would be Oxford University and the old Polytechnic, which was Oxford Brookes, team amalgamation together, which they did to enhance the standard, but also to give opportunities to people who weren't privileged enough to go to Oxford or Cambridge.
Yeah.
And I was there for the first year of that, actually. And it was quite interesting because it was a big change. And you've got two different cultures again, sort of coming together. And I think initially some of the Brooks guys felt a little bit, I don't know, intimidated or out of place, something like that. But it didn't take long, really, for everyone to come together. And it actually kind of added a lot to the changing room because you had people from a different background, different kind of humour, different kind of way of doing things. And they made us better as well. So without them, we'd have been even
a bit more streetwise.
Well, we got hammered every game anyway, but yeah.
I mean, it's weird. It's almost back to the old school kind of gentlemen and players style theory, isn't it? You know, where you're pro. I remember I played for the Nomads, this wandering team from London. Their chairman and president is an old fellow called Michael Blumberg, and he's a wonderful, wonderful man. He's about 307 years old and still rocks out and plays cricket. And that's one of the most beautiful things about cricket, I think, is that it's ageless and timeless. But there was Charlie Lamb, I think his name was. He was the first ever pro at Durham, first person to be paid, but he wasn't allowed to sit in the same dressing room as people who had been, of a more privileged background. And I just think, you're a miles better cricketer, but at that time, the done thing was that despite being, the professional, you weren't allowed to sit with people who were deemed to be from a higher social economic than you. But anyway, I digress.
Crazy.
Talking of higher social dynamics and economics, the chairman of your club that you so love is Jim Carter, and he is the butler at Highclere Castle, is he not?
He is, yeah. That's generally how he is known. No one knows him as Jim Carter. He's Carson the butler.
He is. I mean, what a wonderful man. I've had the pleasure of meeting him very, very briefly, the once. But, I mean, you go in within 50 yards of him and you hear his voice and it's just instantly that kind of deep, baritone voice. But what a lovely man. And he, married to Imelda Staunton, obviously, he's a very, very famous actress. But he just loves his cricket, doesn't he? And loves the club.
Yeah, so the story is that he lives in a house whose garden backs on to Hampstead Cricket Club, and he just got tired of balls getting hit into his back garden because it happens on a regular basis. It's the small side of the boundary straight. It's very easy to get it in there. And one day he just got sick of it and said, well, I'm going to get involved, really. And he jumped over his fence and got to know everyone, and then within a few years he was the chairman.
Brilliant.
Which was incredible. And actually he really transformed the social life at the club. The club's always had a good social life, but he brought in all these famous actors and actresses. He used to have an annual, this sounds really wanky, but we had an annual celebrity match, and he'd bring down Daniel Radcliffe and Tom Felton and all these people from Downton Abbey, who I didn't really know at the time. I'm not really a Downton Abbey fan, but I was quite well known.
Yeah.
And Emma Thompson would come and bowl the first ball of the game because she lives next door to him. So we became a bit of a club of lovies, really. I'm not painting a great picture here. We sound like a bunch of jazzers. We're not that jazzy.
But I mean, you've also got some amazing, some phenomenal cricketers. Steve Finn opened the bowling for you in 2020. That's obviously his club now. I played against him years ago when he was a youngster. He must have been 17 or 18, and he just beat me up. And to the point where I just said, you just bowl a full and straight one, I'll leave it. I've had enough. Seriously, I don't want any more of this. And Richard Banham, who I used to play with at Wimbledon, who can only be described as the angriest man. He's the nicest bloke in the world. You put a cricket ball in his hand, whether it's nets, indoors or outdoor, he turns into an absolute monster. But what a lovely lad. And he still bowls rockets, doesn't he?
Yeah. He's our opening bowler who opens with Finney when Finney plays for us. Actually, the first game that Steve Finn played for us this year, I think one of them was against Twickenham, actually. Eugene,
yep.
You probably remember. But the first game he played for us was against Brondesbury, who are our local rivals who'd just come back up this year to the Premier League, and I just got back in the first team. I hadn't played them first team for a couple of years, but it was my first game back, and Finn was playing, opened the bowling. I think we got bowled out for 120 or something, so we had to bowl them out cheaply. And Steve didn't actually bowl very well. He only got 1 wicket. But all the other bowlers were charging in with their chests puffed out just because Steve Finn was playing. So the other opening bowler, Rich Bannerman, you mentioned, I've never seen him bowl so fast. He was coming down the hill. Steve Finn was going up the hill for some reason. He got a 4 or 5, and we ended up bowling him out for 80.
I remember Banners was 2010. I played with him at Wimbledon, and he was absolutely rapid. He'd just been released by Hampshire. I had a pop at him in the indoor nets just as I joined the club, which turned out not to be the wisest idea. I said, "Oh, anybody's quick off 18 yards, mate." Thinking he'd forget, but by the following week he bowled 5 balls at me, hit me 4 times, and I walked out crying. As a man in his late 20s, which taught me a very valuable lesson: is that someone who can bowl that quickly will always win, especially on a sprung tennis court floor.
I'm surprised you don't relate to him, Jono, because you're a bit of an angry fast bowler, aren't you? I mean, the one game I played with you for the Lord's Taverners, a very gentle, friendly match, and I don't think you took too kindly to a couple of younger teenagers, should we say, hitting you for a couple of 4s backward and square.
I mean, it's hard to hit me backward and square the pace I bowl. People normally lamp me back over my head, to be quite honest. But yeah, well, talking of the Lord's Taverners, I mean, you're obviously so, you're great with your time for them. That's how we originally got to know each other, and obviously the podcast's a big supporter of theirs. What is it about the charity that originally got you involved? What is it about the work that they do that you find so beneficial? And talk us through. I've refrained from telling this story so far, but we shared a moment with one of our 2 of our colleagues that day that I just think is one of the best stories ever.
Oh yeah, one of the most bizarre wickets you will ever see in your life. But yeah, the Lord's Taverners, just a great charity, really. I don't know how I first got involved. I think it was probably through Sky, actually, because we've done a few features on them over the years. And when I started reporting before I went into presenting, that's the kind of thing that I would have been sent to do. Go and make a 5-minute feature on the Lord's Taverners on a particular event, and then we'd run it during the test match. So I think that's how I first got involved. And then I realised they had a team. So I was like, yeah, I'll have a bit of that. I'd love to play the odd game, and they play in some very nice places. And then after I played a couple of games, I then got involved a bit more on the actual charity side. Excuse me. I went and visited a couple of schools in Hertfordshire, actually, which were speciality disability schools. Yeah. To see what the Lord's Taverners had done for them, and to open a couple of sensory rooms and playgrounds for them. And it was really eye-opening, actually, to see exactly what the TAVs provide. It's incredible, really. I mean, they provide a lot of transport, these minibuses that the schools use, but they also provide a lot of equipment. These sensory rooms are amazing for kids with disabilities to use, really are, and outdoor facilities as well. So when I went and saw a couple of these schools and helped the TAVs launch these facilities, that's when I kind of saw the full value of what they do. And I try and go occasionally when I can, but obviously now with lockdown, there's none of that going on, unfortunately. So hopefully we'll back to some of that this year.
And the and talk us through the Johnny Irwin story.
Right. So Johnny Irwin, who is presenter of
A Place in the Sun.
In the Sun, whatever else. Yeah, he's got a plum job, really, hasn't he? He's one of these TV presenters who other presenters look at and think, God, I would absolutely love his job. Travel around Europe. He's in Mallorca one week. He's in Greece the other week trying to sell property. He's done about 1 million series, I think, of A Place in the Sun. It's been going on for 40 years or something. Anyway, Presenting is he's pretty good at it. It's his strong point. Bowling, not so much. Yeah, not so much. In fact, we played this game, didn't we, Jono? Where was it? At Tring.
Tring Park, yeah.
Cricket Club, Tring Park. Very nice place, actually. And Johnny Irwin plays a lot of games for the Tavs. He lives for playing for the Tavs. But he's a bowler.
Steady.
Well, yeah, he is a bowler. He never bats. I've never seen him bat, so his batting must be horrendous. But there were times when I thought, honestly, lads, I didn't think the ball was going to get to the wicketkeeper. It was that slow. He was chucking hand grenades, and they weren't bouncing, and half of them were down leg side, and it was pretty painful to watch. Tring Park had... probably was he one of their pros? I think he was a guy with.
He was an Adonis. This bloke.
Yeah. He was like Jono, but good looking, muscly, and full of tattoos.
So nothing like Jono.
Yeah, exactly. Similar height, bit taller. And he was obviously a very good player, and he had a bit of a strut on him as well. And he probably felt a bit aggrieved that Johnny Irwin was bowling to him because. You know,
who wouldn't
lose situation pretty much, and as it proved to be. So I think he probably whacked 4 fours and 5 deliveries or something like that. And then the final ball of the over, one of these hand grenades, about 2 yards down leg side.
Yeah.
He has to run towards the leg side just to get to the ball.
No.
Hits it. There's one man on the leg side boundary who happens to be the tallest man on our team. Toby Tarrant, who you know very well. He was on your first show, son of Chris, who is actually a decent bowler, Toby Tarrant. And he's clearly a good fielder as well, because he's on the boundary. This guy whacks it, going for 6, right on the boundary edge, jumps up, grabs it with 2 hands, brilliant boundary catch, and he's out. I mean, it is one of the most ridiculous dismissals I've ever seen in my life. And this guy... He walked off so slowly. He was
livid.
Ashamed.
But you've never seen a reaction like Johnny Irwin's reaction. He started screaming. He literally just started screaming. Like it was like a roar. It was weird. Like it was so funny. There's photos of it online. Like it's just. I mean, probably it may well be his first and only ever wicket in cricket. I mean, the greatest thing about Johnny is he pretends to bowl these like fake off spinners. And then occasionally he throws in a leg spinner. None of them turn. He just changes his wrist.
I don't know what he's doing. He's almost sort of trying to do off spin and leg spin at the same time. Dark grip, hasn't he? Where he sort of holds the ball like this as it comes in. Very, very odd.
We'll have to get him on to defend.
He's a wicket taker.
Yeah.
Yes, he is. Yeah, 1 first class 100 for Floydie, 1 wicket for Johnny Irwin. You know.
So we're talking about funny moments. I believe there's some film footage somewhere of you playing against one of our co-hosts this year, Mr. Eugene Berger, and you giving a very fine impression of Bambi on Ice. I've not seen this yet, but apparently it's mildly amusing. What happened there?
Yeah, it's pretty embarrassing. For some reason, I don't know why, but that particular day, I just couldn't stand up.
Something to do with the night before, maybe?
No, it wasn't at all. It was the pitch. It was the slippery pitch.
Yeah.
It must have been a couple of crisp packets just blew across onto the pitch that I was playing. But yeah, I kept setting off for singles and slipping over. Or I think this particular video that Eugene has stuck up on Twitter. Thanks very much for that, mate. It's me. Yeah, the ball hits me on the pad, and I set off for a single, get sent back, and I obviously try and put the brakes on with heels, and I just legs go from underneath me, and it's like a comedy, land flat on your back, and then the mid wicket's coming in to run me out, so I've then got to swim back Monty Panesar to get into the crease before I get run out. I mean, it's one of the most undignified you'll ever see in your life. But then I did go on and get about 80, didn't I, Yush?
You did, correct. Yeah. Thanks for pointing that out. I think you guys might have won that game too.
that may come up in your questions later on.
Yeah, I was going to say there might be a question about that game later on.
Questions? What questions?
That's where you have to give the Lord's Taverners a tenner. Unless you get something right, but and one of us has to match it. But I presume that'll be Eugene tonight.
Yeah. So obviously we know you plan on playing cricket again next year. What do you think cricket will look like in 2021? I know there's some people talking about abandoning tees in certain leagues and whether it'll be short formats like some leagues played this year. What do you think it'll be?
If you'd asked me this a month ago, I would have been very confident that we're going to have a full season. But I think with this current wave, there's a big cloud over that now, isn't there? I'm still confident. I think things are going to improve because if you look at last year, remember how we felt in April? We couldn't really see a cricket season happening then, could we? And things change, things improve. The numbers are going to go down. We've got a vaccine, which we didn't have in April. So I'm sure things are going to improve. And then as soon as they do, people have got to get back to normal life. And part of normal life for us is being able to play amateur cricket, being able to play professional cricket and watch professional cricket. And in an ideal world, get back to normality, being able to eat teas together, being able to be in the change room together. I think as soon as they can have all those things, they'll have them. Listen, I would take a situation like last season, which I didn't mind that much, to be honest with you. We played half a season in the Middlesex League. We couldn't use the changing room apart from 3 at a time, I think it was. Couldn't use the showers. Had to eat outside on the grass, bring in a packed lunch, so no teas or lunches provided. But it was still cricket. The game as much as I would normally. And actually, in a way, in those days, the bars and restaurants were all open. So we could all go to our local bar after the game. We weren't allowed to have a drink in the clubhouse, but we had a couple on the grass and then went to a bar around the corner and booked it out and everyone was up for it. So it was a slightly weird environment, but I still enjoyed it. And I would take that again if it was offered right now, to be honest with you, because the alternative is to have something a bit worse. Yeah, exactly.
I think the one of the things that I think everybody who plays amateur cricket and everybody who listens to this who plays amateur cricket has got to concede that we have spent years and years and years telling league administrators, we don't like this, we don't like that, we want to change, we want to go to one-day cricket, we want to do this, we want to do that, you're doing it wrong, you're doing it wrong, you're doing it wrong. What they did last year was incredible because they mobilised themselves so quickly, every league in the country to a T, pretty much. I think there were a couple of exceptions, although I think the Southern League can cricket very early, but they may have ended up playing some games later on anyway. But, credit where it's due. All these guys who we say, you're so out of touch with what the modern cricketer wants and this, that and the other. Without these guys who are willing to put that time and effort in, we wouldn't. The four of us wouldn't have had any form of a cricket season last year, and my God, we'd have missed it. So I think that all league administrators. I mean, Simon's mum is I think the treasurer at our place, my new club, and she does scores for the first team, and she's on the committee of the not league, whatever. And I think that it's we need to recognise them in this, for actually having done such a good job, because without them last year we wouldn't have played any cricket whatsoever. Sorry, that's my little nice piece about people done for the night or for the month. So most people obviously will recognise you as a broadcaster, Floydie. Initially, obviously, Cricket AM. I was so excited. Because obviously Max was doing, and Tim Lovejoy before him had done, Soccer AM, whatever. And I was like, we need something like this for cricket. I've always been a cricket fan, played a bit of football, but cricket's always been my sport. And then when that got launched, I know obviously you were the second incumbent from the male perspective, and Sarah Jane, you had a great relationship with. What a cool programme to work on, I imagine, until Ibiza Cricket Club turned up, and that day must have been carnage. With Shaggy and Cocktail and the lads on scene, that must have been awful.
No, they were great actually. Yeah. So we, if anyone hasn't watched the show, just to sort of explain what the format was, it was similar to Soccer AM, and we would get a team of the week that would come in every week. Cricket club, and try and find clubs with interesting stories. And obviously, once you've done dozens of these shows, it becomes harder and harder to find clubs with a unique story. And then Ibiza Cricket Club suddenly message us, and we're like, wow, this is a unique story, you know, it's fantastic. So we got them in, we flew them over from Ibiza, and they were our team of the week for that week. A couple of them had probably been up all night. The chairman's a bloke called Shaggy, who he's a sort of man about town in Ibiza. He can fix you up with boats and with villas and in Ibiza. So anyone going there, just contact me or Jono, and we'll sort you out with Shaggy. But they were great. They bought into the whole thing. We played all this, techno music when they came on and stuff like that. They danced,
luminous sweatbands and all that.
Yeah, they dressed up for us. It was really good fun. And actually, Shaggy's quite a good mate now. Whenever I go to Ibiza, I might get him to fix something for me. So
they're a brilliant bunch. They're a brilliant bunch. In fairness, I've loved going over there the last 7 or 8 years or whatever. The wife and I ended up getting married and out in Ibiza, and Shaggy's obviously become a very good friend.
Shaggy conducted the ceremony.
Say again.
Shaggy
he didn't conduct the ceremony.
ceremony.
He actually asked whether he could conduct the ceremony.
He can do many things, but he can't do that.
No, he's now a registered celebrant. He asked if he could do it.
Oh, he's not.
You just come and enjoy the day. If any clubs are interested in touring Ibiza, it's one of the best places in the world. Floyd and I will attest to that. And you can go and play cricket out there. It's played on a 4G cricket pitch. But you're not there for the cricket. You're there for the experience and to play cricket in Ibiza for a couple of days. But it is brilliant. info@sloganit.co.uk if you want to find out a little bit more about that. Simon.
Yeah. So you're now a freelance broadcaster. It's always confused me when people move between all the types of things, but I take it that means you work for yourself now.
Pretty much.
Yeah. How has COVID impacted? Obviously, this last 12 months has been carnage when it comes to cricket. I know you were supposed to be involved in the IPL and doing stuff like that, but that obviously got cut short. So how has it sort of been dealing with that and those types of things?
Well, it's been very difficult, to be honest. I'm not the only person who's suffered, on the work front, I guess, because of the lockdowns and because of COVID. Particularly, I think a lot of freelancers have. So I'd probably been freelance for about a year when COVID hit the first time, and was just starting to build up a bit of momentum post Sky. So I was doing a bit of work in India, bit of cricket in India. Did the 2019 World Cup out there and a few other series, and was doing a bit of football over here for the Premier League and various other things, sort of trying to get my foot in some new doors. And then unfortunately, once the virus hit in March, a lot of places stopped using freelancers. So I know a lot of people in the industry, not just presenters, but all sorts of people, camera operators, EVS operators, sound people, all sorts of technical people, just lost a whole load of work overnight, really. It's picked up again now, but there was definitely a period when obviously there's no sport going on. So people, they depend on live sport. So there's no live sport being played. Their income is completely gone. Their sole source of income. It's not so bad for someone like me. I can survive a little bit more. But I haven't worked really very much since March. I've done a few bits and bobs here and there. But the one thing that you realise is that you really miss the cut and thrust of live broadcast. Used to having it fairly regularly. Suddenly it's pretty irregular. And you find there's a big gaping hole in your life, which you've got to fill. I think it's probably quite similar with professional sportsmen. They 1 minute they're playing the whole time, the next minute they're not. And how do I fill that void? So I've really missed the work and the buzz of live television, and I found that there's nothing really that I can fill that void with, particularly now when you're locked in at home and you can't really do much. So I found that quite tough to deal with. I think everyone's had mental health challenges over the last few months. And the brain is a very powerful organ, and you think about the negative things more than the positive things, and you turn them into a much bigger thing in your mind than they actually are. So yeah, I've definitely had my challenges. One thing I will recommend, by the way, to anyone is to do a bit of therapy, because I never used to do therapy until last year, and I used to always scoff at it a little bit and think, well, what's the point? What's it going to do for me? Is it a sign of weakness? Whereas the reality is, it's not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of real strength to admit that you've got a slight issue. I don't have a big problem, but I think I needed to talk to someone about my situation and my worries about work and about life, and just having someone there on the other end of the line, someone who you trust and who you think you'll get a benefit from just talking to, makes a world of difference.
Did you? The mental health thing, as you know, is a massive thing that we look to concentrate on, and obviously we're going to partner with the Samaritans this year to kind of try and guide people and make them understand that no matter how bad things seem, that there is always that way out. I mean, did you, from your experience, Matt, did you go about that through talking to a professional, or did you talk to friends, or whichever one of those you did, would you ever consider doing it the other way around, for example? So if you went to a professional, is it something you'd feel comfortable talking to friends about, or would you prefer to go the other way?
I think you can do both. I think the more people you talk to, the better, probably. The thing you possibly won't get from your friends is a sort of objective, cold analysis of why you're feeling a certain way, or why you're thinking about a certain subject more than you should be. Of course, you should speak to your friends. I totally agree with that. Some friends are better to talk to than others. But I think it's quite nice sometimes to get a professional view. Now, that's not for everyone. You've also got to find a therapist that works for you, because I know other people who've tried lots of different therapists and never quite found someone who clicked. I was very lucky. The first person that I tried was someone that I really bonded with and connected with, and he can get his point across, I think, very effectively to me. Even when I don't feel like I need to talk to him, I talked to him the other day, just because I have a once every 2 weeks situation with him. I've got to sort of book in a slot, and I didn't feel like talking to him. I was like, well, I feel absolutely fine at the moment. I don't feel like there's anything I need to get off my chest. But then once you start talking to him, you realize that actually it's very helpful. Yeah. There's lots of stuff that you can talk to him about. It doesn't have to be one particular thing. You can just chat about life. And every time I come out of those conversations, I feel like they've been worthwhile, to be honest.
And I suppose that having done this for so long, these people are, as you say, are professionals and kind of know how to kind of change your mindset, or maybe drag that little bit of information out of you that is the thing that needs talking about. I always say, the thing that I used to love watching Suits, and Lewis as a character I used to love, and he's this real strong, brash character, but then he had his German, the German fellow he used to go and see, who used to talk to him in such a calm manner, and he always used to get, and the thing that Lewis always got out of it, he was like, I feel better off the back of that, because sometimes he'd storm out, but then he'd realise later, or sometimes during that session, he'd realise that had been really good for him. So, look, it's amazing, and it's great that people are beginning to talk about mental health more, and the guests that we've had have all been open about certain situations that you and others have been through. The thing that you said about live TV really interests me. I just want to ask you something on that. When you'll have recorded hundreds and hundreds of pre-recorded videotapes, or VTs as you refer to them, but What's
Not the same.
What I was going to say, what is that key difference? And is it a buzz? Is it an adrenaline rush? What is it that makes the live TV such an amazing experience?
Yeah, totally. You hit the nail on the head. It's an adrenaline rush. And I always found that whenever I was doing the pre-recorded links for a show, for example, you're doing India-Australia test match or something, and you do pre-recorded links for lunch, tea and close of play in the breaks. And I always found that I stuffed them up because they weren't live. I didn't get myself up. I mean, I was just sort of reading a little script that I'd written for myself. And I found I made more mistakes reading that sort of a pre-prepared script than I would do if it was live. And also, when you're doing a live broadcast, always every presenter will tell you in the rehearsal you mess it up. And then it comes around to the actual event and you nail it because you've just got that added pressure. You know that you can't make a mistake. So you just do it. I don't know. I really do miss it. It's one of the things I was talking to my therapist about last year. It's one thing that it's like a drug. Once you have it, you just want to have more and more and more, and you almost find it hard to get up for something that's not quite what you want specifically. I used to be scared of it, to be honest with you. When I started, I used to dread the countdown. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6.
Director in your ear.
In your ear. And I'd be really nervous and you kind of you tense up a bit. And you can see that when you start presenting. I mean, if I looked at a tape of me presenting my first year doing it and then in my 12th year of doing it or whatever, there'd be a huge difference. And I'd cringe because I visibly look scared. And I think it takes 2 or 3 years to really find your feet doing live TV, in my opinion.
I presume it takes making some mistakes as well, though, right? I mean, I think was Sarah more experienced than you when you went on to do it? I know that when Max went on to do Soccer AM with Helen, he was like, Helen basically looked at him and just went, "Get the fuck on with it, mate. There's no easy way out. You're here to do a job, and you just have to like man up and get on with it." Did you? Yeah. Did you have a similar thing, or?
Yeah, Sarah Jamie was way more experienced than I was. Similar kind of dynamic. She maybe wasn't as harsh as gone with it, but she actually helped me quite a lot because I ended up presenting Cricket AM. I think it was 2010 or 2009, and I'd only just been presenting for a few months, so it's quite tough to go from just starting presenting to then go into a show like that. It was a bit of a steep learning curve, but because I had an experienced presenter alongside me, she got me through it. And the way that I kind of got a lot of my mistakes out of the way was I was doing a lot of overnight cricket. So the first time I did a live presenting broadcast for Sky was because Nick Knight was ill.
Okay.
It was a West Indies Australia ODI, I think 2009. So it would have started at about 3 a.m. on so not many people watching it. And that's one of the good things about Sky is that they do give people opportunities.
Yeah.
I'd been a reporter, I'd done a few things, but I'd never, ever presented anything live. So you've got to do your first show at some point, I guess. And this was the chance. Nick Knight was ill, so I got a call about, 7 or 8 hours before on air saying,
You're in.
On.
Yeah.
And I had a few hours to kind of look at my stats and prepare. I obviously did sleep because I was so nervous and I wanted to make sure I was ready. But that's how it works in TV. Someone's not around or can't make it into work for whatever reason, and you've got to take your opportunity. And it's at 3 a.m, so they say to you, look, if you make a mistake, don't worry. Only 3 men and a dog are watching it.
Sounds like Toby Terransman morning show, that. Sorry,
He's
Toby.
got 5 men and a dog, Toby has.
Before we go on to the questions for the Towers, something I know you're passionate about club cricket and amateur cricket, and Sky obviously used to cover the National T20 Finals Day, and the last time they did that was at the washed out finals day at the Oval in 2013 when it rained all day. And now they have, I don't know, a 20-minute thing of 2 semi-finals and a final that, it still gets played and there's obviously still quite a nice prize. I think that's a real shame. Now, it's not necessarily Sky's fault, but I just wonder what your opinion would be on what you think the general public thinks about amateur cricket, because most people are amateurs who play the game and not professionals. And then surely there must be a desire, or that would be seen to be aspirational for the normal club cricketer to see the top performing amateurs from England performing on that stage. What do you think that it's something that Sky will ever pick up again? Do you think they should? I mean, I would love to see it back on the screens.
Yeah, no, I agree with you totally. Sky did make a very big commitment to English cricket all those years ago, and part of that was they're going to broadcast a lot of women's games, a lot of under-19s games, do the Club 2020 Challenge, provide some extra programming like Cricket AM and other things, and lots of different features and shows that we'll watch some of them now on the Sky Sports Cricket channel. So they did invest a lot into cricket in this country. That was at the peak, I would say, when they were doing Club T20 Challenge. I presented it a few times, actually. It was one of the things that I cut my teeth on.
I think that's the first time we ever met, was at the Oval that day.
That's right, yeah. It was a bowl out, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was, yeah.
It was rained off bowl out.
I watched Bob,
Wimbledon won it.
Bob Willis, bless his soul. We were sat in the commentary box with him, and we watched him eat his first ever Nando's. Bob Willis and Charles Colville eating macho peas without cutlery. Jesus, you would not believe the amount of swearing that came out of Bob Willis's mouth.
It sounds like a very niche story, this.
Honestly, it's one of the funniest things I've ever seen. Bob Willis, everyone calling him Uncle Bob. Fucking hell, no bastard. How are you going to pick the bastard? I can't even put the bastard things in me bastard chicken. It was absolutely brilliant. But what a character he was.
Oh, he was, yeah. Bob was an absolute gentleman and a great guy. I remember when I first started presenting, it was quite intimidating because I'm not an ex-professional player. Me and Charles...
First class 100.
yeah, don't ask at that. Me and Charles Carville, the only two sort of journalists, you would say, on the presenting roster. And obviously all the pundits are all ex-players too. So it's a bit of an intimidating environment when you first start out, especially when you're working with famous ex-pros. And I was a bit scared, but Bob was one of the guys who really sort of was extremely nice and made you feel totally relaxed, wasn't suspicious of you and respected your cricketing opinion. And I'll always remember him for that. And he was also a great bloke to have a drink with. He was really good fun, actually. He had a dry sense of humour, and his on-screen persona, nothing like the guy off camera, which is a bit odd. Normally you get a feel for someone for what they're like when you see them on camera, but with Bob, he was a lot more friendly off camera. It was just part of his shtick, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, going back to the Club T20, yes, I would love to see that on Sky again. I would imagine that the reason why Sky stopped broadcasting it was purely because of resources and viewing figures. Maybe they felt getting enough viewing figures for the amount they were spending on it. I mean, that's why they stopped Cricket AM.
Right.
Eventually, Sky, it wasn't just Cricket AM, but Sky axed a whole load of magazine shows in one fell swoop because they basically did a lot of research and they discovered that really the vast majority of people get Sky just for the live games.
Okay.
But all the rest of it is, guys like you and I, we're cricket nuts. So we love all the extra programming. We love all the magazine shows. I used to love all of the different shows for different sports they used to do, like Revista de la Liga, Spanish football, the rugby club, the boxing one. What was that called? Can't remember.
Gloves are off and that kind of, maybe before
yeah,
gloves
before
are
gloves
off,
are off, they had another show. And I used to love those shows because they give you a potted version of what's gone on in the past week, sport. And I haven't got time to be watching loads of Spanish football live games, so I used to like watching a 2-hour highlights show with a bit of chat and a few features. It was perfect. Unfortunately, Sky made the decision that they want to put all of their resources into live sport, and that's the way they've gone. So now they've now recreated a few magazine shows, but they're ones that you don't have to spend much money on, like the debate. Just get in the studio, and you have any VT, and it's pretty simple. So I would imagine that it's unlikely that Sky would go back to broadcasting something like the Club T20 Challenge live.
Right, okay.
They made a decision now to just put all their money into live professional broadcast.
Professional sport,
And they would probably sort of bracket that in the same grouping as magazine shows, I would say. I think it's a real shame, because I think, shows like that just give your coverage a little bit of difference.
Yeah. Well, it's a point of difference.
A bit of diversity. Yeah, totally. It's something different. And also, those shows are interesting, and those live club games are interesting because you get some very good players playing who, in the future, can become England players. I think Gary Ballance, I remember, played 1 year. Who else? Did Dom Sibley play? I think Sibley.
Well,
he came down, didn't he? He didn't play.
The 2012.
Bailey played.
Tom Bailey played 2012 against us in the final. He's now playing for Lancs. Luke Wood played against us in the semi-final for Cookney. He's now playing for Lancs. Billy Root played for us for Cookney. We are ex-pros Will Butler, Richard Stroh, ex-pros
He got a contract at Hampshire off the back of that finals day.
Yeah, I mean, just, there's some real good cricketers. I mean, look, obviously I played, so there's some crap mixed in, but, there are some really good cricketers. But Matt, honestly, your insight and your honesty about everything we've talked to you about tonight has been absolutely wonderful. So thank you so much for agreeing to come on. Respected broadcaster, a mammoth of the broadcasting world.
Mammoth, a titan,
behemoth of the broadcasting world. First class 100 for Oxford, earning himself a blue with a 2-1 in classics. Matt Floyd, everybody, thank you so much. We're now going to take anywhere up to 10 quid off you, which is going to be matched by Eugene Berger. 5 questions. Simon's going to ask you 5 questions. You need the exact answer. It's £2 per question. Okay, so if you get them all wrong, you give a tenner and Huge gives a tenner to the Lord's tabs. Okay. If you get 3 right, 6 quid.
Yeah. What you like with your crick info stats?
Absolutely.
What you like with your crick info stats, Matt?
Find out.
Could be a tenner then. So, according to Play Cricket, sorry, not Crick Info, Play Cricket, your highest score for Hampstead is 130 not out. Who was it against, and what year was it in?
He knows who it's against, but what year has just really stuffed him up.
Is it Richmond?
Ooh.
2012.
It was against Finchley, second team, in 2014. I think you did all right. Having looked at your scores, you did well against Richmond in 2012. That was a game I was looking at to try and find a stat from. So
who was it against then? It was
Finchley.
Finchley in 2014.
Always get runs against Finchley. Good try.
I thought I was doing the answers, but never mind.
I'm sorry, John. Ruined that.
It's all right, guys. Let's squabble.
That's what we do. We
again.
Question number 2, Simon.
John, do you want to do the question and the answer on this one?
No, you crack on.
I'll carry on. Okay.
This is a shambles, guys. Come on, get it together.
According to Play Cricket, again, you have hit 269 fours for Hampstead. But how many sixes have you hit?
Oh, my God. This is really geeky, isn't it?
No, it's just going to cost you a tenner. We just pick the most awkward questions.
Not many. I've not got much power, I'll be honest. I'm a corpse with pads, for God's sake. I will go for 23.
Ooh, 16.
I've overrated the pudding there.
You have a little bit.
I'm obviously even less powerful than I thought.
It's on some boundaries with trees inside the ground, so it would have gone for 6, but it had to be 4.
Having watched him
Jim
play,
Carter's Garden.
having watched him play at the one game I watched him play at Tring this year, lovely batsman to watch. He's a stroke maker. He's not a whacker. He's a stroke player.
Yeah. Along the ground.
Question 3.
Question 3. In 2016, you had a stellar, almost Bradman-esque season average of 94. Good effort.
Oh, did I?
But how many not outs did you have?
Oh. Can you give me?
I'll give it.
I played.
307.
You had
7 innings. Yeah.
you had 5 innings.
Ooh,
Oh.
he's going to get this.
And is it an average of 94? Jeez.
It's still pretty good.
But it's still pretty good. I'd average 3.
I reckon I had 2 not outs.
Damn it! Right, correct.
I'll still give the £2.
Oh,
No.
hang on, sorry.
We play properly.
Sorry,
Question
clicked
4,
up there.
Simon.
Yeah. Sorry, yeah. In 2010, a strong year for you again. What was your most common form of dismissal?
Caught.
Incorrect.
Stumped.
You've been stumped. Sorry, John, I've done you again. You've been stumped 5 times in your career. 3 of them were in that year.
Really? Well,
See, you did.
running down the track to the opening
Charging down
bowler.
the track by the sounds of it, yeah.
Bloody hell.
Charging
Probably
down and missing
Eugene
it.
with his filthy offies. Just trying to...
I love this. You're right. Eugene's done so much stick tonight, and he's basically said about 3 sentences.
Exactly. Yeah.
Floyd, he's just shooed him all night.
Looking forward to cricket this
darts.
season.
Yeah.
And that horrible wicket at Twickenham, just firing it into this Bunsen burner.
The nicest man in southwest London, and Floyd is just absolutely shooed him all
Here will be a
night.
new one.
It gets
Because you haven't
better for
got me
question
on
5.
the Middlesex Premier League podcast yet.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for the call.
This
Next
is
week.
just the warm up, mate. This is just the
Yeah,
warm up. And finally, question 5, Mr. Roberts.
In this season just gone, you played against our very own Eugene Berger, putting on a massive 146 for the 3rd wicket with Robert Keane, who obviously must be a good player because he got 100 and you got 82. But how many runs did Eugene Berger get?
Oh. I think he got 16.
Oh, no.
Thank you.
I mean, I was trying my best for you, man. Really was trying. Anybody who's watching on YouTube will be like, oh my God, how did he get that wrong?
I was just trying to big him up after I've been, the whole last hour. Thought I'd do something nice.
My answer sheet says, 0, run out trying to scurry off the mark. I've known Huge a long time, and I've never seen him scurry in all that time.
But I've seen the scorecard and I know who he was batting with. And there's not a lot of running going off between them.
It was
I'm trying to remember the dismissal.
left-hander Blake hit one straight to
Van
mid-wicket.
der Linde.
Called me through.
Yeah.
I was halfway down the. It was like, well, okay. There's no point in me even running. Yeah, I might as well just go back to the change room.
Yeah, I'm just gonna
Was it
turn
a direct
away.
hit, or was it just like underarm slowly and fumbled, and then
Yep.
tails off, and you just
Yep.
walked off?
Yep, basically, yeah, it was one of those where, it was just I was sold down the river. I didn't face the ball. I think, it was in for about 2 minutes. It's fun.
It's funny because
So-
after you went out, he said it was all your fault. You just didn't.
I
Sounds
still
like
have that word with him.
That sounds like
a
Blake, to
very
be fair,
Blakey
that.
thing to say, actually. You got me down to a T there, Matt. So Matt Floyd owes the Lord's Taverners £8, and that will be matched by Eugene Berger, offering them £16 on top of all of the wonderful donations that our great listeners have offered this week. Matt Floyd, what an absolute pleasure to speak to you. You're a gent for coming on. Your company's been fantastic over the last hour and a half. Thanks
Loved
so
it,
much,
mate.
and we look forward to getting you involved in the Slogging It 11 as we embark on that this year. That's going to be amazing. So can't wait to see you score 100 in real life.
Well up for that. Well, I won't score many runs, but I'll have a few. I'll begin in the changing room. I think
if we're allowed in.
Oh yeah, of course. Socially distanced, of course. Me and two others. Been a pleasure, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah,
Top
cheers,
man,
Matt.
thank you very much,
Massively
mate.
appreciate it.
Looking for a new cricket equipment partner for yourself or your club can sometimes be tricky. With so many options to choose from, how do you make the right choice? When you want quality, value and service, there really is only one place to start. For more than a decade, Woodstock Cricket have been producing award-winning, high-performance cricket bats from their Shropshire workshop. Matched with their classy soft goods, luggage and accessories, Woodstock Cricket really do tick all the boxes. Get in touch with Woodstock Cricket and find out why many loyal clubs, players and international customers can't be wrong at info@woodstockcricket.co.uk.
Thank you again, and as always, to our partners, Woodstock Cricket, for their continued support. Brilliant interview for me last night. Really, really enjoyed it. I've been very open about the fact that I've, really, really enjoyed the one with Luke, but there are a number of things from last night that we've spoken off air and really want to talk about, that came out of last night. So we'll go through them in order. The idea of unconscious bias, I think, was struck a chord with all of us. And obviously we spoke to Matt quite a lot after the interview. When you think about it consciously, it happens. And I think everybody is guilty of it. I think I'm guilty of it in certain situations. Not that I think that's necessarily acceptable or right, but I think it happens. And I think that if everybody was able to admit that to themselves a little bit, it kind of makes the world a slightly better place. But I think, certainly it was an important point for you two as well that he recognised that.
Yeah, I mean, it makes you. I think a lot of the chat when it's come to the BLM stuff across last summer and this sort of thoughts of unconscious bias it's made me really assess my own behaviours and thoughts and everything that goes with it. And I've never sort of been someone. I've never considered myself to look at anyone differently or in any way, shape, or form treat anyone differently. But it's for me, it's two things. There's obviously the conscious stuff that people talk about, which is horrific. That's flat out wrong. But this unconscious thing, I thought about it last night, and it's this thing. I think the only thing I can kind of put it down to is a comfort type thing. You see people when you get into if you rock up to a university, for example. I live very close to Nottingham University, and different ethnicities, different countries, people of different nationalities, and will naturally congregate together. So I think part of it is a totally. I want to be surrounded by people who I know are similar to me, and that's not that is a very different thing to the very conscious stuff. But when it kind of crosses that barrier of impeding other people or preventing them having the same circumstances or getting the same opportunities, it's a very difficult one to try and get people to see and get people to look at, because yes, part of it might be a comfort thing, but you've got to physically try and change that basic mentality, and that's instilled into people. That's from a very, very young age. You'll see it when you go to schools. Lads hang out with lads, girls hang out with girls. Yeah. It's at that very young age.
It's a familiarization thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
As well as having perceived more in common with lads wanting to be around lads or girls wanting to be more around girls. Huge. What are your thoughts, mate?
Yeah, I've heard unconscious bias before. I've actually been through training to change my mindset at work. I work in a very male-dominated environment in technology, and gender was a big thing. So we went through some training. The leadership team must have been about 5 years ago. So I've been through this, and from my perspective, it's something that I think is hugely important that the world needs to understand. It's really interesting, though. I was thinking about, I've always put myself in these scenarios where I try and take myself out of that, and I suppose I did it when I first moved to the UK because, as you will all know, when people move to the UK, every South African moves to Wimbledon. because that's where all the
Southwest
South African.
London.
Yeah. And I made the conscious choice not to live in Wimbledon. And I suppose the reason for that was I wanted to experience other nationalities, i.e., the English and everyone else. So I ended up living in areas like Esher and Twickenham for most of the years. And fortunately, by some chance, I've actually ended up in Southwest London, close to Wimbledon. It just happens to be so. But I suppose that's something that, it will be good to challenge each other on. And specifically on a cricket field. It was interesting, Matt, talking about like the Middlesex League, of which I play in that there's a lot of Asian cricket players, a lot of Asian clubs. And I mean, I think about Twickenham. Our first and second 11 probably have at least 4 or 5 Asians per side.
Yeah.
So I suppose my thoughts on this is my unconscious bias, and where I'm thinking about people that are like me is either, somebody that really enjoys their cricket, somebody that enjoys to have a beer after the game, or not for that matter, because we do have people in the club that don't drink. So, I was going to make a bit of a joke about it and say it's people that like to score runs, but I didn't score very many runs last year. So.
And I mean, Audi aren't a sponsor, so we shouldn't really call them out like
exactly.
that. But like Jack Leach getting free glasses for life. Huge is now on free A4s for the rest of his life. The other thing that I got from it is like, this term of casual racism gets bandied about, doesn't it? And it happens a lot. And people say, oh, well, it's casual racism, it's funny. But, as someone who's been a victim of it, not that I care. Like, one of the funniest things that happens to me every year is one of my real good mates, who's a Kiwi lad who's moved back, always just to wind me up said I look like Inzi. So with it being my birthday today, on the dot at midnight, a new photo of Inza Mammal Hack got posted on my Facebook saying, happy birthday, Jono. But it's a running joke, and that's great, and it's fine. But you can understand why other people might take offence at it. There's other things that get said, and you wouldn't, if you don't know someone that well. It's like, well, hold on, like I haven't. You haven't really got the right to do that, and then and so it can be perceived. And it's not whether you actually mean it; it's how the other person perceives it. I think that's really important. Yeah. It's not about whether you're trying to be funny, or you're not trying to be mean, or you're not trying to be rude to someone. What you think doesn't matter. It's how the other person receives it that actually is. They are, and it's their right alone to decide whether they think it's a problem or not. So I think that people should consider that. Look, if you've been mates with someone for 15 years. And as I have with this lad, and that's just a thing, and I've said that's funny and it's acceptable, then fine, crack on. But if you don't know someone that well, yet you decide to make remarks of a similar style nature, then maybe you're kind of stepping out of line a little bit, and need to reassess it.
It's about the intent behind it. For me, when I obviously being of the skin tone that I am, I've got no clue of how it feels like to be racially abused. I can't even begin to understand it, and I don't claim to at any stage be able to understand how that must feel. But most of you guys don't know, I'm hard of hearing, and what? I can remember. Yeah, exactly. Sorry, I couldn't help it. That's fine. It's Jono. I'll call him Inzamam again later. But it is that kind of like people. It's weird because the first time I got diagnosed with hearing, the first time my mate took the mickey out of me for it, I felt normal. It felt normal to have that done to me. But then I can remember I was at Ascot Racecourse, and someone made a comment. Now I did hear who it was. I got my deaf aids in, and I didn't. I can remember now going, hang on. And he was a little guy, little weedy fella that obviously all his mates stood behind him, and someone said to him, "Oh, go and take the piss out of that lanky streaker piss over there with hearing aids in." And he made some wild comment talking about my sunglasses, they're adjustable by the gauges on the back. Which, when I think about it, it's actually mildly amusing. But Like it's just the fact that he had no right, he had absolutely no right to say that to him. And I think that's the thing. He meant that in a malicious way.
Yeah.
He was taking the piss. Are you this kind of person? I think if you're doing it in a malicious way, any comment, anyone that's meant with malice behind it is wrong, especially when it's something that they have no control over.
Yeah. I think
So
if it's meant in any way to belittle someone, then it's a problem.
Yeah, correct.
And if you've got your own insecurities or whatever, and feel like that you have to target other people or get other people to make yourself feel better, then you've got more problems than the rest of us. That's my view on it. But yeah, I think I'm glad we've raised it. Just because we raise these things not because we're trying to tell people that how they behave is wrong. Everything we're trying to do is support as many people as we can. But if by this being said, someone goes, well, maybe I do that a little bit, and maybe I need to change that a little bit. Then again, that it's a positive step that's been made.
I suppose from my point of view, John, yes, it's important to talk about it, and there's a reason for that, because sometimes people feel uncomfortable challenging what people have said. And from my perspective, if somebody said something to you, for an example, about you being, of a different color, and you didn't reply, I'd reply on behalf of you. I don't need to do that, but I don't think they have the right to say anything about that. Casual racism, from my perspective, is really not on. I'm not a fan of it. I don't endorse it in any sort of way, or for any disability for that matter. And I suppose it's if we can ask people, because it's important to talk about it, think about what people are saying, and some people won't stand up for themselves because they feel they might be further.
Sometimes it's easier just to kind of blend in and not challenge stuff, isn't it? I mean, it's funny. I just thought of something. So like, Simon, obviously being hard of hearing, tells a joke, and that's all. And it's a joke about a deaf person, and it's brilliant and it's funny. But because of his situation, he's almost taking the Michael out of himself a little bit, and he will do that within an environment and people with which he's comfortable. I think that's almost the marker for me. That was the marker in our relationship, in our friendship, where if you tell me that joke in that context, then it's like, okay, he's cool enough with me that we can address this and we talk about it and it's fine, and then you move on, and then but I think it's just right for people to be very aware of not what they feel they can and can't say, but think about the other person's maybe not outward, but maybe inward reaction to what you're saying.
I think there's a couple of bits on like the joke I tell, and quite often a lot of these comments are based around ill-educated stereotypes, and if that's the case, then it reflects far worse on anybody who doesn't experience it. Like a lot of people who do that. I do the voice, which is rubbish. It's a stereotype that's come from the 1970s. That's how people who are hard of hearing or whatever speak, and it's bullshit fundamentally. The significant majority of people who have hearing issues speak perfectly normally. But like, and it's the same when it goes back. It's it's if I'm having a conversation with you, Jono, where I stand on things. And a joke is a joke. It's not coming from a place of malice. And the second thing we're talking about when it comes to people speaking about it is, me and you have had some conversations talking about race and things like that, and I've had some conversations with some other people talking about because there is confusion. There is confusion, like what words can be appropriate, what things can be said, like kind of. There's some blatantly obvious ones that are massive no-goes, but then there's somewhere, almost a bit like we've had with the coronavirus, the messaging that comes out has changed over time. I can remember when I was growing up, the term coloured was encouraged. It was the word that should be used. Now, absolutely not.
Yeah.
unless you decide with a certain demographic in South Africa, but that's slightly different. So I think there's like a lack of education and a lack of understanding. But coming at what this program's about is talking about those issues and being able to have those conversations. The same as I had a conversation with you about it, and it works from both parties. People have got to be able to accept the conversation and go, right, I might hear something that I might not like, but I know this person's talking to me about it because they want to improve. And the person who's having the conversation has got to start the conversation because you've got to want to improve.
Yeah,
I think even the thing with kind of casual, let's deal with the racism side of it. It's weird because often, even if it's perceived to be meant as a joke, it's always almost kind of guided at the person who's in the minority within the group.
Yeah.
So therefore, It's not really casual racism because it's like, well, all right, one white lad's not going to go and be casually racist to a group of 10 black fellas, because it just and so there's almost like a position of strength within a group that makes X, Y, or Z feel that they can be casually racist, which therefore kind of makes it racist. It's just like, but if you say it with a smile on your face, you think you're more likely to get away with it. I'm not saying that everybody who does make casually racist or otherwise comments are inherently racist or otherwise negative about people with different situations, but I just think it's really important that everybody kind of goes, well, hold on, rather than what I think is acceptable to say. How is the person who's receiving that information going to react to it, not only outwardly but also inwardly?
Agreed.
The second thing I think we were massively impressed by with Matt, and we didn't. Obviously, we talked to guests about what we're going to ask them and stuff, and talk to them about whatever. When he talked about therapy, the three of us kind of looked at each other on the Zoom call as if to say, "Hold on, well, we weren't expecting this," but it was amazing, and for him to be so open about that without being prepped and asked, or we didn't know that was going to happen, and I think that we've spoken about it again. It shows us that for someone who's a broadcaster or a personality, if you like, who's felt like they could come onto our podcast and talk that openly about it, it was amazing. Huge.
Yeah. I mean, for somebody to speak so openly, considering, I think he raised it himself when we were on the call to say, he hasn't worked in anger for over a year, and he needed somebody to talk. He needed somebody to talk to. And I like the way you phrased the question there, Jono, in that, did you talk to friends or did you actually get professional help? And Matt said, yeah, I mean both, but more importantly, he wanted to speak to somebody professional, and the main reason behind it was they've got answers as to how to deal with certain things in certain situations where the likes of you, me, or Robbo, will listen and will lend the ear, but we probably might not say the best thing or the right thing at the right situation where a therapist does. So
we'd cater our answers, wouldn't we? Do you know what I mean? Like, so let's say if it was Robbo, because obviously we're having this conversation at this very moment in time. If Robbo came to us and said, I'm having a problem with this, obviously we try and give him the best answers that we can, but we also won't perhaps be incredibly straight with him, because if he's feeling pretty low, you don't want to almost kind of, give him another blow to the head, if that makes sense. Whereas, more professionally capable to deal with these issues, but these professionals who've trained and know how to deal with it will be at times pretty brutal. And say, right, actually, no, so, this is what you need to be thinking about. This is how you need to address it. The way that you're dealing with it at the minute is simply not working. And, it's that kind of cruel to be kind thing, isn't it? I've got friends like that, a lad I used to play cricket for and live with. He's often talked about as being a bit harsh and a bit straight down the line and stuff. But I'll tell you what, there wasn't a single minute. There hasn't been a single minute in all the time that I've known him that I've not known exactly where I stand with him. And so if more people could be a bit more like that, then the world would probably be an easier place in which to survive. But yeah, I thought Matt doing that, Simon, I'm sure you've got a view on it. Coming on and talking so openly about it was amazing.
I thought it was amazing, like you say, completely unprompted to talk about the fact that he sought therapy and that type of thing. I actually had an interesting chat with my mum about it today, and talking about how easy it is to speak to friends, and I think the problem is when you speak to friends, and it's like, yeah, Jono, you said to me about when I did my episode in episode 3. It's hard. It's hard when it's one of your friends, and
Yeah.
so especially depending on what the subject is, but it's also hard to give a clear response because you are emotionally invested in that person, especially if it's a spouse or a partner or whatever, a really close friend. So it's and you will automatically have an emotional reaction. Whereas certainly from my experience of therapy and what Matt's was, it's that like clarity when you say the things come out and that person goes bang, and you kind of go, yep, oh,
yeah.
you're not saying that because I'm your
I
mate
want you
or
to say
whatever.
that. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
You're saying that because that's actually an issue, and you go away and you kind of think, and it for me, it happened in session 1 when I was talking to my person, and like it is really helpful to have that.
Brutal
If you
honesty makes people feel uncomfortable, though, doesn't it? This is the thing, because there's the way that the world is now. Everybody's kind of it's a bit there's that whole snowflake thing, isn't there? Like everybody wants to be nice to everybody, and I get that. But and look, the world should be a nice place in which to survive and be and enjoy life and whatever. But at times, when that kind of straight talking thing is needed, but as you say, with someone that you care deeply about, friends, family, whatever, you have that subconsciously. I think consciously thinking, right, okay, I really need your help, but subconsciously your brain's going, protect them, protect them, protect them, because you love them and you're their friends or partners or whatever. It's a real difficult balance, I think, to find. Like Huge and I spoke obviously with what Huge went through recently, and I reached out to Huge quite a lot, just to again, as one of my best pals, just to make sure he's okay and stuff. But while we were having these conversations, I never felt guilty for saying stuff, but there was a conversation where we were talking about what are the next steps with his dad, because his dad now lives on his own in quite a remote place, and I consciously was saying to you, look, you might have to have a conversation that you feel might be that you don't leave time to run before having that conversation, because if you do, things just almost become normal, and then it's very difficult to maybe change that situation. So
Yeah.
And I don't think before doing this podcast I would have been able to do that, because I'd have just gone protect you. And as though it was positioned, and it was absolutely done from a place of love, it was, a very honest thing, and actually try and make people think about other things that maybe they wouldn't otherwise see during that time of need. And I think that I'm not saying that I'm a better friend to use through doing that or not, but I think it is the right way to try and help cajole people along through difficult times to try and help them come out the back end of it in a better place.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree, Jono. Sometimes you need tough love, if I'm really honest. The truth hurts a lot of the time, and unfortunately, there's nothing we can do about certain situations. What's happened has happened. So from my perspective, it was great to hear that and get your support, and not only yours. I mean, there was a lot of people that phoned when Mum passed away. So all the messages and all of that sort of stuff, and it's crazy how many other people are going through the same scenario. And I sort of mentioned to this you guys off air, in my current team at work during the Christmas period, 3 of us had a death of a parent. So
Wow.
it was just one of those where it's just you're not alone when it comes to that sort of stuff. And I'm not saying that it's it offers you a bit of condolences and all of that sort of stuff, but from my perspective, it's something that happens in life. And yeah, like I said, I'm just really glad that you guys offered the support you did and managed to speak to you guys on the phone, and just hearing those voices. But as I said to people, sometimes you just need time with these sort of things. So yeah, I mean, as much as the truth is important and you need to move on, you also need a bit of time on your side.
Yeah, 100%, absolutely. And anybody, we say this every week on the podcast. Like, it's always better to reach out and never necessarily be thanked directly by someone for reaching out than to not reach out at all. You know, today is Tuesday. Yesterday was Blue Monday. You know, which is globally known as, you know, the toughest day of the year. People's bills have come in for January and whatever, and people find this time of year incredibly difficult, you know, in any given year, and you know, obviously more so this year, considering everything that's happened. It'll be the first time that we've experienced one of these days whilst in a global pandemic. So again, we implore you to reach out to people who you think may be having a tough time, and just offer that support, or just offer an ear. You know, and that can make a massive difference for people. The third thing that we wanted to cover off, you know, it was 2021. We obviously heard Matt speak about what he thinks 2021 looks like. You know, we've spoken about it between the three of us, you know, off air. But you know, my personal view is, and you know, you just, you know, heavily involved with the Middlesex League. From a purely cricketing perspective, I'd love to see a full season. I'm 38 today. I haven't got that many years left. I mean, I bowl absolute dobbers anyway. Let's be honest. So I don't, you know, it's not like I run into hard anymore. But you know, I just want to enjoy cricket as much as I can for as long as I can. You know, and so very hopeful of getting as much of a season as we can. But I think we're all just praying for a more positive year, aren't we? You know, hopefully the vaccines work. And you know, work across all these different variants of the virus and what have you. But you know, Eugene, firstly, what are you kind of, you know, say looking forward to, or really hoping that we're going to see come out of this year?
Yeah, I'm glass half full in this. You know, I reading the press, I don't believe everything I read, but you know, you've got to take some, where there's smoke, there's fire. If they're talking about stuff, that's good news. I mean, we've already had 3.5 million people vaccinated. They're talking about having all adults vaccinated by the middle of July. And considering we didn't have a vaccine and we still managed to play 3 months of cricket last year, I'd like to think that, you know, come the beginning of May, when most leagues start across the country, I know some start in April, I'd like to think that there's, you know, we're going to be able to play cricket safely. I think we're going to have the same rules and guidelines that we had last year. So social distancing, hand sanitizing, no use of change rooms, bring your own tea, no shower facilities. I think that's still going to continue. And then as and when, you know, the guidelines change, so cricket clubs will follow. So from my perspective, I'm glass half full. And, you know, at Twickenham, I know, you know, we're preparing for cricket season to start on time. And hopefully that's the case. You know, from my perspective, it's mentally important for a lot of people, you know, to get out and spend time on a cricket field. It's a form of exercise. Yes, you get to socially, you know, get involved with people from a distance. It's like golf. So yeah, in my perspective, I think I'm glass half full.
Brilliant. Yeah, Si, what are your thoughts and plans and aspirations for the year?
Well, I mean, my cricket season is going to depend on my personal situation with a baby due, so we'll see how much I can play. But like, I just think we mentioned it on the podcast yesterday. Jono obviously talked about administrators. I think they don't get enough credit. They, like you said yesterday, they get shot down. I know I've got a bit of a personal interest in this. My mum is a cricket administrator, and to be fair,
she is the Badgeress. I mean, she is unbelievable. I love her. I would sit and talk to Steph Roberts about cricket for hours. Like, you know, she's just wonderful.
Yeah, but they put the amount of work that they put in to get in what cricket we had last year, and like you said, we had fundamentally a lot of people, even down to the fact that the leagues work together. And I didn't know this till today, that one of the leagues in Nottingham cancelled all its Sunday fixtures to make sure that teams could get Saturday fixtures in.
Yeah.
Like, so individual leagues are sacrificing themselves so that other leagues can be completed. And the way that administrators work together was a massive tip of the cap and stuff to them. My interest, I love going and watching club cricket. I'm fortunate I played enough of it. So even if I'm not playing, and I hope I get to play a couple of games given my personal situation, I'll go down and watch games. I'll stroll around the boundary. I'm hoping I get to be able to do that no matter what. So for me, there's more than just the playing side of it. It's cricket is a massively important thing to a large part of the community. When you think of, it gets groundsmen out, it gets some of the older chaps, the Muppets, as people like to affectionately call them, out and watching cricket. They've got a reason to get out of the house and maybe take 2 or 3 cans of lager, and even if it's just sitting on the side on a bench and sit there with a picnic or whatever, it helps so many people. And like you say, that mental side of stuff. So I just hope something happens. Like I said to you guys, the one thing I've not done in cricket is score 100, and if I can do that, I'll happily do that and walk off, and I'll never be seen in whites again.
Yeah, I mean, let's just quantify that. Like Robbo, no word of a lie, said to me the other week, well, if I get 100 and we need 5 to win and we're 9 down, I'm still walking off. So, I'm not sure that would be the...
Probably not the best time to declare.
Yeah, can you imagine?
Yeah. That's it, boys.
Yeah, retired.
Yeah,
throw
in my kit at people as we go off. You can have that. You can have that. No, I think the one thing last year did in the amount of cricket I played is I got a buzz back for it. I'd not played for a while, through various different reasons, to be honest. And as I said in my episode, I fell out with cricket because it was something that
it caused you pain, didn't it? Really,
it caused me a lot of pain. So, but now I realise it's not the cricket that caused me pain; it was my own issues, shall we say. And last year, I played 4 or 5 games. I was terrible, but I got out stumped when we were 9 down and needed 5 to win. That's embarrassing in one game, isn't it? But
until we get
yeah,
Greg Nielsen on, mate. That's a story about being 9 down. Let me tell you.
Let it go, Jono. Let it go.
Let it go.
But yeah, I felt I enjoyed it again. I'm looking forward to netting as and when we can. Yeah, the seamers are going. I'm not there.
Mate, you're not bowling flat, horrible off spin.
Mate, anything that keeps my big toes and my back functioning, I'm going with. Yeah. And I can't straighten my right arm anymore, can I? So off spinners are the way forward. Get the old bent arm doobras out.
Are you turning 50 soon?
No, I'm 30. I'm 38 in 2 weeks, mate. Mate, this side, for those of you on podcast, my right hand side is knackered. Literally knackered. My collarbone sticks out the top of this shoulder. I can't straighten my right arm. My right ankle is fused and fixed. It doesn't go anywhere. Left hand side, still all right, apart from the big toe when I bowl for more than 3 overs.
That's it. It goes to show that when he's playing golf, because he can clear his left hand side, and that's why he ends up hooking everything.
Yeah, that's why everything goes.
Very good.
Left.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, look,
Yeah.
we've covered a huge amount.
I have one quick question, lads.
Yeah, go on.
How was it like interviewing the interviewer?
Do you know what? He made it incredibly easy, I thought.
Yeah.
He was just very, very open. A pleasure to talk to. I've played a couple of games of cricket for the Tabs with Matt, and he's very, very approachable. Really nice guy, not standoffish at all. I found it really interesting when he was talking about the guys. I can't remember if he's on the pod or off the pod when he was talking about some of the kind of real legends of the game that he's worked with and what have you, and what the differences are between different personalities and whatever. Couldn't find a nicer bloke. Really happy to offer his time to anybody. And yeah, he's just a good egg. He's just a really nice bloke. Obviously, he's got a first class 100, which is phenomenal.
Yeah.
A 2-1 in classics from one of the greatest universities in the world, and but there's none of the airs and graces that some would necessarily think would go along with that. He's just a normal, down to earth, nice lad.
Yeah, I'll echo that massively. I had to Google what classics was today. That shows my level of education.
I didn't even bother that. I didn't even bother doing that. I just know it's something that I'd never have been able to have read.
So. Old stuff, Greek, Latin, and the history of it.
Oh, okay.
So, I had to find out what that was. But now I think we've been really fortunate with a lot of the guests we've had on. Certainly, I mean, he knows what it's like to interview people, and he knows that we are not professionals.
Yeah.
So he goes into it, and he's he makes it easier. The same as when we were interviewing Max and Toby. They know how to make an interview easy. And I think they've been very nice to us. We've been really fortunate so far that all the guests that we've had on have been pretty easy to talk to and really engaging. And none of them go, so what is your favourite moment in cricket? 2005?
Yeah. Hey,
Okay.
it's probably going to happen. It probably will happen at some point.
I think we all know who it might be with as well, but we don't.
Yes.
I'm going to say that in a minute.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, there's a fair chance. But yeah, look, great to talk to Matt. Follow him on social media. Get in touch with him. Like, if you enjoyed listening to what he had to say, I know that he'd be happy to kind of engage with people and whatever. He is a nice bloke. Just because, something that's taught me a lot about doing stuff. People just have different jobs. Everybody has the same problems, and everybody goes through the same shit. And good people are good people. It doesn't matter whether they earn 10 quid a week or 10 million a week. If you're fundamentally decent inside and out, then that's what that's. And he's absolutely one of those people.
And we've got a top 3 batter for the Slogging It 11.
Yes, we have. Yes. We have. So yeah, Matt's confirmed that he's going to come and play in one of our game against the fire service that we will talk about in due course. But yeah, thank you again. I must mention Big Smoke, who are our brewery partner, and so thank you to them for their continued support. Thanks for being with us. Look, keep engaging, keep talking to us. Let us know who you want to hear from, what you want to hear about. Thanks for putting up with us. Thanks, more importantly, for putting up with Simon tonight, because someone shoved a tenner in him just before he came on air. But yeah, thanks to you two as always, we look forward to speaking to you again next week.
Absolutely. Cheers, boys. See you later.
Take care, guys.